You think modern sci-fi is wild? Let me tell you, back in the 1950s, Hollywood was already serving up radioactive monsters, alien invaders, and scientists messing with nature like kids with a chemistry set. Why do these movies still feel fresh, decades later? Is it the wild imagination, the doomsday warnings, or just the thrill of seeing a giant ant stomp through downtown? Buckle up, because the 1950s weren't just a golden age, they changed the future forever. Let's dive in. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1956. Imagine waking up and everyone you love is suddenly acting off. Too calm, too polite, eyes a little too blank. That's the chilling setup behind Invasion of the Body Snatchers, a movie that turned small-town paranoia into high art. The plot is deceptively simple. A doctor in California slowly realizes his friends and neighbors are being replaced by emotionless doubles, pod people grown from mysterious alien seeds. But the real terror isn't the pods or the aliens. It's the dawning horror that you can't trust anyone, not even yourself. Shot with a restless energy, the film barrels from ordinary streets to nightmarish chase scenes, building an atmosphere so tense you'll feel the sweat on your palms. Director Don Siegel keeps the action fast and the stakes sky high, never giving the viewer a moment to relax. There's barely time to breathe before the next shocking reveal. What sets this film apart isn't just the sci-fi angle, but how it tapped into Cold War fears and the anxiety that your neighbor might not be who they seem. Critics have spent decades debating if it's a warning against conformity, a metaphor for losing your identity, or just a really creepy story. But ask any horror or sci-fi fan, Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a classic because it gets under your skin and never lets go. If you want to know where the trust no one trope started, look no further. This is pure, pulpy paranoia, bottled for all time. The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951. How do you get the world's attention? Try landing a spaceship on the White House lawn and sending out a giant robot that vaporizes tanks with a single laser. That's the opening move in The Day the Earth Stood Still, the 1951 sci-fi masterpiece that made Klaatu Barada Nikto a catchphrase for a generation of film lovers. The story is simple, but the message is as big as the cosmos. An alien named Klaatu arrives on Earth with a single warning: humanity needs to cut the war talk or face consequences that make the atomic bomb look like a sparkler. Alongside his indestructible robot companion Gort, Klaatu tries to convince Earth's leaders to unite, but he quickly discovers that human suspicion and fear are tougher foes than any weapon. What makes this film so compelling isn't just the impressive effects or the iconic robot. It's the way it delivers its warning. No preaching, just sharp storytelling and an almost prophetic sense of doom. Director Robert Wise fills the screen with tension and uneasy calm, balancing moments of awe with nail-biting suspense. The scenes of panic, government cover-ups, and one unforgettable moment when the world literally stops spinning all hit with a weight that's still relevant. Even after all these years, The Day the Earth Stood Still feels like a wake-up call from another world. Are we smart enough to listen, or do we need a robot to set us straight? It's a question that lingers long after the credits roll. Forbidden Planet, 1956. Take Shakespeare's The Tempest, launch it into deep space, and toss in a robot with more personality than half of Hollywood. That's Forbidden Planet, a movie so ahead of its time, it makes even modern sci-fi blush. The film drops us on Altair 4, where a starship crew led by Leslie Nielsen finds a scientist, his daughter, and the legendary Robbie the robot living among the ruins of an extinct alien civilization. But don't expect simple answers. The planet's mysteries run deep. Ancient machines that can create anything you imagine, invisible monsters powered by subconscious fears, and technology that feels like magic. The visuals are a Technicolor fever dream, loaded with sets, soundscapes, and effects that made audiences in the 50s wonder if Hollywood had found an actual portal to another galaxy. What makes Forbidden Planet unforgettable is its willingness to tackle big ideas. The film asks what happens when humanity's reach exceeds its grasp. What if the real monster is our own mind? The sense of wonder and dread is perfectly balanced, with scenes that are alternately breathtaking and eerie. Plus, Robbie the Robot became an icon overnight, cracking jokes one minute and saving lives the next. Every frame feels like it's daring you to dream bigger, imagine more, and look deeper. While some of the dialogue and romance may feel old-fashioned, the core ideas are anything but. This is one sci-fi adventure that truly lives up to its title. Utterly forbidden, wildly imaginative, and not quite like anything else before or since. The Thing from Another World, 1951. Stranded in a frozen outpost with a shape-shifting alien. Sounds like a recipe for disaster, right? The Thing from Another World sets the gold standard for trapped and terrified sci-fi, decades before John Carpenter remade it into a gore-fest. In this original version, a group of American scientists and Air Force officers stationed at the North Pole uncover a UFO buried in the ice. What's inside is not your friendly Martian. It's a plant-based monster that drinks blood and bursts through doors like it's auditioning for a wrestling match. What really sets this one apart isn't just the monster, it's the breakneck dialogue and the characters' genuine sense of camaraderie. The banter crackles, the suspense builds with every footstep, and the Arctic setting feels as dangerous as the creature itself. There's no safe place, no help coming, and the cold is almost as much a villain as the alien. Director Christian Nyby, with more than a little help from producer Howard Hawks, keeps the action tight and the stakes high. Every time the monster appears, it's a pulse-pounding moment, but it's those scenes of desperate planning, tense group decisions, and the creeping dread that make it a must-watch. The Thing from Another World proves that sometimes the scariest thing isn't what's lurking outside, but what happens when people are pushed to the edge. If you like your sci-fi with equal parts fear and teamwork, this is the one to beat. War of the Worlds, 1953. Martians aren't coming, they've landed, and downtown is about to become ground zero. War of the Worlds takes H.G. Wells' classic invasion story and turns it into a full-throttle Technicolor nightmare. Set in small-town California, this version trades in Victorian settings for Cold War anxiety, as alien war machines descend with death rays that melt tanks like butter and send entire cities fleeing for their lives. This isn't a slow burn. From the first flash of alien fire, it's a race against extinction. The special effects, giant floating machines, brilliant colors, and eerie sound design were groundbreaking for their time. The Martians are unforgettable, looking nothing like humans in rubber suits. When their ships rise out of the ravaged landscape, it's pure cinematic shock and awe. The characters might not win awards for depth, but they do their best in the face of chaos. You feel the panic in the air, the scrambling for answers, and the raw human terror that comes with facing the unknown. There's even a healthy dose of skepticism and authority figures arguing while the world burns, something audiences still recognize today. But what really makes War of the Worlds legendary is its sheer spectacle. It's one of those movies that grabs you by the collar and doesn't let go. You're not just watching an invasion, you're living through it. The message is clear. Sometimes the universe isn't waiting for us to reach out. Sometimes it knocks first, and it isn't friendly. Them, 1954. If you hear chirping in the desert, run. Them isn't just the granddaddy of the giant bug craze. It's the film that made America collectively side-eye every anthill for decades. Atomic testing in the New Mexico sands doesn't just fry the ground. It supercharges a colony of ordinary ants into skyscraper-sized people-eating monsters. Suddenly, the quiet desert is the front line of an all-out war between humanity and the ultimate swarm. What gives Them its bite isn't just the ingenious puppetry or the iconic high-pitched ant screams that make your skin crawl. It's how the film slowly builds dread, with police investigating mysterious disappearances, twisted trailers, and a little girl too traumatized to speak. The moment the first giant mandible bursts through the sand, that's pure cinema adrenaline. The film's second half goes full-throttle action, with military units torching ant tunnels under Los Angeles and scientists warning of an apocalypse-level threat. At its core, Them isn't just a monster flick, it's a nervous snapshot of atomic-age fears. The idea that mankind's reckless experiments could come crawling back, literally, is as potent now as it was then. The characters aren't here to crack wise or fall in love, they're here to survive. The action is raw, the effects are still impressive, and the sense of doom never lets up. Them proved that sci-fi could be terrifying, socially relevant, and wildly entertaining all at once. If you're looking for the moment when the genre truly grew legs and pincers, this is it. The Incredible Shrinking Man, 1957. You think you've had a rough day? Try losing an inch every 24 hours. The Incredible Shrinking Man is a mind-bending trip into paranoia, existential dread, and the dangers lurking in your own living room. After an encounter with a radioactive cloud, Scott Carey starts getting smaller, a lot smaller. First, his clothes are loose, then he's dodging the family cat and fighting for crumbs. By the end, he's facing a showdown with a house spider that suddenly looks like a T-Rex. What starts as a medical mystery spirals into a harrowing survival story. Director Jack Arnold uses forced perspective, towering sets, and clever effects to turn everyday objects into massive threats. That sewing needle isn't for mending, it's for self-defense. The dripping faucet becomes a waterfall, the basement transforms into a wilderness full of mortal peril. But what really hits home is the film's emotional punch. As Scott shrinks, so does his sense of dignity, belonging, and control. The world literally gets bigger, colder, and more indifferent. The movie refuses to let him off easy. It makes him face questions about purpose and identity that still resonate. And just when you think he's doomed, the Incredible Shrinking Man throws one last curveball. A final monologue that's as poetic as anything in science fiction. This isn't just about size, it's about the human spirit refusing to give up, even when the universe keeps shrinking your odds. If you want a movie that'll make you see your own life from a whole new angle, look no further. The Fly, 1958, teleportation. Sounds like a good idea, right? Until you step into the machine and come out different. The Fly takes mad science to its grotesque conclusion, with a premise so unnerving it still makes people flinch. Scientist André Delambre invents a matter transporter but, in his rush for discovery, shares his experiment with a housefly. The result? A man with the head and arm of a fly, and a nightmare that spirals out of control. This isn't your average monster movie. Most of the story unfolds through the eyes of André's wife, Helene, whose confusion and heartbreak turn the film into a twisted domestic tragedy. The horror here is as much about loss and transformation as it is about gooey special effects. But don't worry, those effects deliver. The first reveal of André's monstrous new face is a shocker, and the infamous "help me" ending a tiny fly-headed man caught in a web is one of the most chilling moments in 50s cinema. The Fly stands out because it dares to make the monsters sympathetic. André isn't evil, he's a man destroyed by his own ambition and a simple mistake. Vincent Price adds a layer of gravitas as the concerned brother-in-law, elevating the drama beyond standard B-movie fare. If you've ever wondered where body horror really began, or why scientists in movies never learn to double-check their work, thank The Fly. It's tragic, creepy, and unforgettable, proof that the scariest monsters might be the ones we create by accident. Creature from the Black Lagoon, 1954. Jungle rivers, ancient fossils, and a monster with style. Creature from the Black Lagoon is pure, pulpy perfection. Deep in the Amazon, a team of scientists searching for prehistoric remains discovers a creature that's part man, part fish, and all trouble. But unlike most 50s monsters, this one isn't just here to smash stuff. The Gill Man, as he's known to fans, has a mysterious, almost tragic quality that gives the movie unexpected heart. The underwater scenes are what really set this film apart. Director Jack Arnold used daring stuntmen, innovative camera work, and an eerie score to make the creature feel both alien and strangely graceful. The famous swimming sequence with the Gill Man gliding below star Julia Adams is as beautiful as anything in classic Hollywood. You don't know whether to scream or sigh. Of course, there's action too. Harpoon guns, desperate chases, and a final battle at the creature's hidden lair. But what keeps people coming back is the creature himself. The suit, designed by Millicent Patrick, is a triumph of practical effects. Even decades later, it's hard not to feel for the lonely monster, misunderstood and hunted by outsiders in his own world. Creature from the Black Lagoon isn't just a monster flick. It's a showcase of what practical filmmaking can do when imagination runs wild. If you think you've seen it all when it comes to movie monsters, you owe yourself a trip downriver to meet the original king of the deep. Tarantula 1955. Forget your bug spray. Tarantula brings you face to face with your deepest eight-legged nightmares. The setup is deliciously bonkers. In a dusty Arizona lab, a scientist working on a serum to end world hunger accidentally creates a tarantula the size of a house. Soon, the local desert is crawling with more than just tumbleweeds. You want scale? This spider isn't lurking in the shadows. It's flattening barns, blocking highways, and terrorizing everyone unlucky enough to cross its path. Unlike many of its atomic-age peers, Tarantula doesn't rely on radiation to fuel its horror. The threat is homegrown, born out of good intentions gone very, very wrong. There's even a touch of mad scientist drama, with side effects that turn humans into deformed, shambling husks. The real star, though, is the tarantula itself, brought to life with ingenious effects that use real spiders and clever compositing to make the creature truly menacing. Director Jack Arnold keeps the pace fast and the action surprisingly gritty. The desert setting feels sun-baked and dangerous, amplifying the sense of isolation. The film knows exactly when to show the monster and when to keep it hidden, ratcheting up the suspense to a perfect pitch. But Tarantula is more than a bug movie. It's a warning about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the perils of trying to play nature's game. If you like your sci-fi with a jolt of real pulse-pounding terror, this is the giant monster flick you've been looking for. The Blob 1958. Let's set the record straight. The Blob isn't just a cult favorite, it's the original ooze that ate Main Street, USA. Forget ray guns and monsters with a grudge. The villain here is a pink, unstoppable mass that grows bigger with every unlucky victim. The setup? A meteorite lands outside a small town, unleashing a blob of gelatinous terror. At first, it's just a curiosity for curious teens, but before long, it's eating everything in sight, from doctors to diners. What sets the Blob apart isn't just the creature, it's the sense of panic and disbelief that spreads through the whole town. Steve McQueen, in his breakout role, is the only one who sees the threat coming, but the adults just laugh it off. That is, until the Blob slides under doors, seeps through vents, and takes over the local theater in one of the wildest scenes of the decade. Who knew Jell-O could cause that much chaos? The film's effects might look old school, but there's a genius simplicity to how the Blob is portrayed. There's no motive, no plan, just endless hunger. It's the kind of threat you can't reason with or outsmart, which is what makes it so memorable. And that theme song? Pure earworm material. Decades later, The Blob still holds up as a masterclass in slow-burn suspense and community-in-peril storytelling. The lesson? Sometimes the weirdest monsters are the ones you never see coming until they're oozing up behind you. Just try looking at your dessert the same way after watching this. It came from outer space, 1953. Look up at the night sky and you might spot more than shooting stars. It Came from Outer Space makes you question every strange light and unexplained bump in the desert. The plot kicks off when a meteorite crashes near a small Arizona town, but of course, it's not just space debris, it's a spaceship carrying visitors who don't look or act like anything from this world. What's truly groundbreaking about this movie is its twist on the alien invasion story. Instead of laser battles and immediate mayhem, the film follows amateur astronomer John Putnam as he realizes the aliens aren't here to conquer, they just want to fix their ship and get home. The problem? The townsfolk aren't buying it, and soon paranoia boils over. The aliens, who can imitate human appearance, are just trying to avoid detection, making every neighbor a suspect. Director Jack Arnold cranks up the suspense with eerie sound design and shadows that stretch forever, turning the Arizona desert into a stage for fear and wonder. The film's use of 3D was a game-changer, with moments that pop off the screen even decades later. It Came from Outer Space dared to show that not all aliens are out for blood. Sometimes they just want to be left alone. It's a sci-fi film with empathy, wrapped up in a mystery that keeps you guessing. If you've ever wondered what really might happen if we aren't alone out there, this one will keep you scanning the skies and maybe peeking at your neighbors with new suspicion. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, 1953. Long before Godzilla stomped Tokyo, a prehistoric beast was already making its way up the American East Coast. The beast from 20,000 Fathoms unleashes a massive radiation-awakened dinosaur on New York City, kick-starting the monster movie craze in the U.S. This isn't your garden-variety lizard either. The Redosaurus is all claws, teeth, and unstoppable rage, brought to life with jaw-dropping stop-motion animation by the legendary Ray Harryhausen. The film opens with Arctic nuclear testing, a nod to the era's obsession with atomic power, accidentally freeing the creature from its icy slumber. As it heads south, chaos follows. Ships vanish, lighthouses crumble, and the military scrambles to keep up. The tension ratchets up with every roar and every distant sighting along the coastline. But what really sells The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms is its sense of mounting doom. The closer the monster gets to civilization, the more desperate everyone becomes. New York streets turn into a war zone, and there's a pulse-pounding finale inside Coney Island's roller coaster, where science and brute force collide in a last-ditch effort to stop the beast. Harryhausen's effects were revolutionary, making the creature feel real, dangerous, and surprisingly expressive. This is the movie that launched 1,000 imitators and paved the way for every giant monster flick that followed. If you love your sci-fi with a side of city-smashing chaos, this is where the rampage began. When Worlds Collide 1951. How would you react if you found out Earth had just days before another planet smashes into it? When Worlds Collide asks that question and then throws humanity into a race against time and extinction. Astronomers discover a rogue star and planet hurtling toward our solar system, and it's not just a close call, it's a direct hit. Suddenly, survival becomes the only thing that matters. The film doesn't waste time on disbelief. A team of scientists and philanthropists scrambles to build a rocket that can save a select group of people and animals. It's Noah's Ark for the atomic age, with tough choices about who stays, who goes, and how civilization will start over on a new world. Panic grips the globe, resources get tight, and human nature is on full display, sometimes noble, sometimes desperate. The effects were mind-blowing for the era. City-destroying floods, volcanic eruptions, and the final launch sequence are a spectacle of color and mayhem. The story might be old-fashioned, but its themes, resource scarcity, social division, the fight for survival, feels strangely modern. When Worlds Collide stands out as more than just a disaster flick. It's a warning shot about playing chicken with the universe, and a testament to the hope that, even on the brink, we just might pull together. If you ever wondered what you'd do with one last chance, this movie doesn't let you off the hook. 20 Million Miles to Earth 1957. Space exploration sounds fun until you bring something home. 20 Million Miles to Earth is proof that souvenirs from Venus aren't always a good idea. When an American rocket crashes off the coast of Italy, locals rescue a mysterious container that holds the Emir, a tiny lizard-like creature that soon grows and grows and grows. Before long, it's towering over the Roman skyline and fighting tanks like it's just another day at the zoo. What makes this film more than just another monster run-amok story is the creature itself. Ray Harryhausen's stop-motion artistry gives the Emir a weirdly relatable presence. It's confused, scared, and only becomes dangerous when humans poke and prod it too much. There's a moment where it's simply wandering the countryside, as lost as a stray dog, and for a second you almost want to root for it. But don't worry, the action comes fast. Chases through the countryside, rampages through markets, and a final showdown at the Colosseum crank the tension up with every frame. The Italian setting adds a unique flavor and some spectacular backdrops for the mayhem. 20 Million Miles to Earth is the perfect mix of wonder, danger, and tragedy. It's the kind of movie that reminds you why you fell in love with sci-fi in the first place. Sometimes the real story isn't about the monster at all. It's about how we react when the unknown comes calling. So, are you still convinced the 1950s were just about sock hops and milkshakes? These movies proved the decade was ground zero for everything wild, weird, and wonderful in sci-fi. Which classic blew your mind, or did we miss one that deserves a place on the list? Drop your favorites in the comments, hit subscribe if you want more cinematic deep dives, and don't be afraid to question what's really out there. The future? It started here.